like at this point, Benji, you help us define what happens in staging environment.
Yeah, so like I said, this is the second stage in the architecture, and basically this is where you do your transformation. By that is whereby you check in your data to see whether it fits the different formats you would like to be. So things like date formats, you know, you're also checking on things like data quality. Is the data clean?
Yeah.
So sometimes you can get data which is not clean from the source systems. And so it's in this environment where you can identify the various outliers.
Yeah.
Things like maybe in a transaction system where they did not put the right systems to maybe capture things like gender.
Yes.
You might find maybe they have male, M, F, and female. But you see, in data analytics, we want to have one common identity. So you can see how you can maybe replace the M to be male or vice versa, based on how you want it. So on high level, those are the various kind of activities that happen in staging.
I can add on staging where you can source data from different systems, right? Let's say a company has Oracle, a system that has an Oracle database, for example, it's a HR system, another accounting system having a database on MS SQL, another one like let's say a cashier system having a database on pushing data into PostgreSQL. So staging, you also choose one database that you work with, but you need to make sure that what you settle on is the skills that you have internally. So let's say most people have skills on Oracle, or most people have skills on MS SQL. You will push that data into MS SQL so that people can get it easy to write queries to match the format. So let's say you are sourcing data from an accounting system where we have dates of names of employees, like first name, last name, 2 columns. Then there's another HR system that has full name, you see. So when writing those queries, doing concatenations, everything, you need a database that most people understand, so that you can work with it.
All right. So at this point, I'd like us to talk about data warehouse. Ken, maybe you can start something then that we can add to it.
Okay, so typically in a BI architecture, once you move from the staging level, you go into the data warehouse. The concept of a business intelligence is you need to have a data warehouse. That's where the reporting should be. So, so you don't want to report directly from the transactional database, right?
Yes.
So you kind of create an environment, a database where you have all the data sources, all the data in one repository, and that's a data warehouse. A data warehouse basically contains that's fact tables and dimensions. And fact tables holds mostly measures, dimension holds the attributes of the data. And to add on to what Benji was saying is staging level, it's good to have a staging level. That's why you have the data quality aspect of it. You standardize the data in the sense of you want all the names to be uniform. And you can add on, like you can have features to enable that data quality integrity. There are services or components or features like master data management to have like a master data of the organization. You can have data quality services to have like to kind of solve the data quality issues and no duplicates. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
So
So to add to that, also at the DW level, which is the data warehouse, you want to talk about normalization and denormalization. Normalization, which is the aspect of the transactional database, where in that kind of format, the databases were designed for easy writing, right? And that is the main purpose why they designed them like that. They separated the tables, But in data warehouse, because of the analytics purpose, which is again, some people will call it OLAP, right? For analytics processing, right? So at this point, we combine many of the tables, we stretch it out so that, for instance, where we have the 2 tables connecting, maybe customer table and transaction table, we flatten that table and make sure that it's easy for reading now, that from that data warehouse. So again, it helps in performance when this table is flattened out rather than creating more joins, you know, which creates bottleneck when you are querying that table. Yeah, so.
Okay. I'd like, as a brief, just a brief overview of ETL, which is the tool that's enabling movement of data across all these different stages. Yeah. So maybe we can define what ETL is.
ETL simply stands for extracting, transforming, and loading of data. So we have also different tools for ETL. We have Informatica, we have ODI, we have SIS. But ETL is basically used for data migration from one point to another.
Yes.
So for example, sourcing data from, you can source data from where we have the sources to the landing environment. You will use an ETL. From landing to staging, from staging to data warehouse. But now it's not just a normal way of moving data, because at some point someone can just write queries and just write a stored procedure and make it run, create a job to make it run. But now ETL is meant, it's a special tool that manages a lot of things. For example, slowly changing dimensions, if you're able to manage that, and it's meant to make that work easier for data migration. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Another aspect that's very important in this whole process is deployment. Maybe Benji, you can just talk about that for a bit.
Well, before I talk about deployment, let me just add on what Barry said on ETL. It's good to know that ETL is also an automation tool, basically to automate the entire process. So the various tool sets are various ways of automation, so that on a daily basis, maybe an ETL can run maybe once or twice based on the business need.
Okay.
So it's quite important also to know that. So as far as deployment is concerned, best practice is usually to have various environments for the sake of not to avoid errors done in production, and so we bring in now other terms like, let me call it test or stroke development, and then we have production. So these two environments are actually a replica. For a start, you start with test, and once we ascertain that now what we have started with as far as a BI project is concerned is right and giving the right output, is when now we deploy that to another environment, let me call it production. And then now moving forward, you can try to see how you can be doing your updates as far as version controls are concerned. Yes.
Okay.
To add on what Benji is talking about is, many organizations, you'll find that they might have 3 environments. Best practice actually is supposed to have 3 environments. But you might see, due to resources, you might have 2. Now, talking about 3, it can be dev environment, development environment, and then there's the test, and then there's the production. Okay. You can also have 3 of that. You can also have test and production. Yeah, but best practice have 3 of them: dev, test, and production.
Okay. Also, something else that I feel like we should just highlight is the aspect of mapping.
Interesting.
Which is, very important.
I actually wanted to, as Benji was concluding, I wanted to say that aspect is very, very important. Because you don't just wake up and then they've thrown at you, migrate this data from this point to this other side, and then you just start writing queries and stuff like that. And my friends here might agree with me that Excel is a very good tool to do that mapping. So it's very important. And the mapping also helps us to know that when we are moving from this source, in what format is this data in on this end, and in what format should we give it on the other end. In fact, it guides you. It's just literally the name mapping, right? After mapping those sources from this column here, when it gets to the maybe staging or even data warehouse, the destination side also, you have to ensure that they have the same data type and all of this, the fields that you're going to put on this side. So it's a very good aspect, and it's guided mainly by the business requirements, right? So it's a very important aspect we should not leave out.
Okay. Is there anything on them?
No, you're not leaving. Since you was talking about data mapping, I feel like one of the things that we need also to have to kind of go hand in hand with the data mapping is a data dictionary.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So you need to have a data dictionary to give you like a guideline of what the formats of the data looks like. Yeah, that's just an addition of the data mapping.
Okay. As we conclude, maybe anything from you guys that you want to say to the people?
Maybe I have something to add on what they've talked about.
Okay.
Sometimes you find that some systems don't have even documentation to start with, and so it will be difficult as maybe when you're doing BI sourcing from their source systems, and they don't know, or there is no an existing data dictionary for that matter.
Yes.
But you see, it's good that you identify someone who really knows their systems.
Yeah.
And these are the people who will be your sort of dictionary in quotes. But also moving forward, it's a good practice in what you're doing. You have a developing documents so that anyone else will come after you. They will always have a reference point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You usually find another developer is the data dictionary.
Yeah.
So it's a good point to emphasize on documentation. You know, we as developers, we don't like documentation.
But it's very key.
Key.
That is true. Barry, in conclusion, anything from you?
Yes, I doubt if I have anything to add in that, because we have talked about, we have talked on, I have touched every point that I could think of. But I trust that documentation is key, because I have ever seen a database that has more than 2,000 tables, and those tables are not named; they're just codes. So trust me, you can totally not work with it if you don't know anything that's in that table. You must work with a developer that works with it, or must get a document for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So from my own end is just to say that, and Benji, I can actually thank you, because there's a project he left behind that I continued, and he did a very good job in the mapping of that project, and also the about what he did on that project. So I don't, I did not have to call him on phone to say, hey Benji, what did you do here? So it's very important. It makes the life of the person coming next easier, a lot easier.
You'll get scenarios where you're calling the guy who left the organization to set up a call with him so that he can explain to you what this column, this field means, and that's hectic. So best practice is to have documentation.
Yeah, it's hectic, and at some point it's dangerous, because at some point you'll be exposing internal data to someone who's left. Someone who has left. And number two, maybe if someone left on a bad note, they will not be able to help. So
or they will mislead you.
It might even force you to develop a new solution.
And that's timely and costly also.
Right,
Okay.
So sorry for that, Lauren. I know you need to cut it short, but Barry has talked about the sensitivity of data, so we cannot actually ignore this. So when you are dealing with data, it's good you also talk about data compliance, and it's quite important, because even lately in Kenya, there are laws that have been put in place for compliance.
Which I think will be a whole other topic. It's so long, So we'll have someone come to talk about that. But that's very important. Okay, so I think in conclusion, just to say that requirements gathering are very important in this whole process, because you really need to go with what the business users want through the entire process. That's key, because at the end of it all, you're developing these solutions for them. So I hope you enjoyed the session. Until next time.